This is the Future of Device Management podcast, brought to you by Fleet. I'm your host, Zach Wasserman, CTO and co-founder of Fleet. Now, let's jump right into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to the show. I'm Zach Wasserman, and I'm here today with Whitney Champion, co-founder and lead architect at Recon InfoSec. You might know her from her work with OpenSOC CTF or the awesome security work that she talks about on her Twitter. Whitney, can you tell us more about your story, how you got into cybersecurity, and what brings you here to this point today?
Yeah, so I've always had a love for computers. I started building websites when I was like in middle school, building servers and hosting websites out of my closet when I was like 14. Got owned a few times by some nasty nerds online who thought it was funny and learned some solid lessons about RBAC. I worked tech support all through college, which was really an eye-opener. And I was a TA in the security lab, so it kind of pushed me towards the CEH and the CISSP. I know we all love those these days, but when you're 18 and are new to everything, it just pushed me further into security. So I got a job offer with Honeywell when I graduated, and so I moved down to Charleston to work as a security contractor, which ended up being not what I thought it was, but it ended up being pretty amazing. It was a lot of certification and accreditation work and like risk assessment and testing for the Navy and their cross-domain solutions. So it was pretty fascinating because like some of these are like things that, you know, our soldiers wear in the field. You know, it was really cool work. But it also opened my eyes to network forensics and analysis. And then especially made me realize how much I did not want to have anything to do with auditing or DIACAP anymore. And then I moved over to the Navy. I was a Fed for a while before I jumped ship. Haha, get it? See what I did there? I left and went to a small startup. It was called Spark at the time. There was only like 40 of us. But then a couple of years later, we ended up being acquired by Booz Allen Hamilton. I did a lot of security automation and infrastructure automation there, and really stuck my teeth in and stayed there for many years until I went over to Red Hat, which I thought was my dream job, but I realized I really missed security and startup life. And about 4 years ago, I guess, I met Eric and started doing the Recon thing, and been here ever since and love it. It's a blast.
Oh, so you actually were attempting to leave security when you went off to Red Hat?
Well, no, not intentionally. Red Hat was like a 10-year goal of mine. When I was in college, I said I really wanted to work there because it was an awesome company. I had a lot of friends there. It was great work. I'm a Linux nerd, Fedora nerd my whole life, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get my RHCA. I'm going to get all the things, and I did it. But got there and realized that it was not what I wanted to do at all. Consulting was not for me, and I wanted to get back to the startup life and the grind and do things. So we're doing it.
That's awesome. And so then at Recon today, what does your day today look like? What's the grind, I guess?
Oh man, it's a blast. It's kind of all over the place. I develop our internal platform, so a lot of my days are heads down, you know, neck deep in code. And I swore for years, and sometimes still do, that despite all the development work I do, that I'm not a developer. But I'm really enjoying it this time around. It's super exciting, and it's definitely a welcome change up from just infrastructure and that side of things. But I build and maintain our security infrastructure for Recon, both what we use for our SOC and the one that we use for OpenSOC, which we'll get to shortly. But but bottom line, I guess whatever I'm doing is pretty much, it always directly ties back to making sure that our analysts have everything that they need to succeed and do their job, whether it's like building out new integrations for different security tools, or adding new functionality and integrations to our platform. We're a pretty small but really resourceful team, and we wear a lot of hats. So the day-to-day varies, but same end goal.
Oh, that's cool. Can you tell me more about the Recon InfoSec platform? I'm actually not very familiar.
It's not anything that we make public at all. It's just what we use internally as a team. So it just makes our analysts and customers' lives easier. But it's a labor of love kind of thing.
Got it. Cool. And then how does that relate to the OpenSOC platform? Do you kind of represent quite a bit of what you use internally in the OpenSOC tooling?
Yeah, to a certain degree, because so kind of the whole idea behind OpenSOC, or one of the big ideas behind OpenSOC, was everything we built from day one is tied back to the idea that most of what we do can be done with all of these really badass open source tools, versus overly expensive, complicated proprietary platforms. So we use a lot of the same things in our shop that we use in OpenSOC. So, for example, we provide all of our OpenSOC participants with a set of tools: OpenSearch, Archemy, formerly known as Mohawk, OS Query, which you may or may not be familiar with, and Velociraptor, and we show them just how powerful, how powerful these tools are when wielded properly, and all for the amazing cost of free $99. So these are all things that we push on our participants, because you get to see just how much mileage you get out of all those, with not a lot of, well, there's a lot of elbow grease that goes into it, yes, but there's a lot of benefits.
Yeah, and this is interesting for me to learn that like you had this whole dream about joining Red Hat, and so open source has really kind of been a core part of your interests for a long time, I guess. What's so exciting about open source for you?
I mean, I have always loved open source, being able to contribute back and kind of get involved in it. Just for one, it's fun, like you get to dig in and see how the things work, and be involved as much as you do or don't want to. And we were working on a project the other day. They have a repo. We ran into a couple issues, pushed some things, voila, your problem solved. Like, you don't have to sit on the support line for 2 weeks going back and forth on tickets. You can, if you have the time and energy, you can figure it out. But as far as Recon, like, security is hard, and it's even harder when there's a huge $sign barrier to entry in your way. And I feel like we can give back by making just a little bit easier for folks to get in there. So that's one of the big pushes behind OpenSOC is, we show the tools and all that too, but we also kind of teach the methodology that you can do all these things, but the same techniques are applied across all the tools, whether they're the ones that we give you, or if it's Splunk or something else. We teach the methodology behind it, not just the tool.
That's awesome. Have you spoken to a lot of folks who've kind of used OpenSOC as an entry into being blue teamers in the industry, or kind of pivoting to blue team if they're already around?
I'd say that's a large percentage of the folks that we've had come play. I mean, sure, there's people that just want to go play and learn and get their hands dirty, but I mean, when we have folks in the range, they're getting nearly identical exposure to the tasks that are performed by a real SOC analyst or incident responder. So it absolutely translates to the professional side. And even for like people working in IT or support roles, which we've also had plenty of, OpenSOC lets you get to the root cause of why, what happened, and when and how on systems across the whole network, which are necessary skills, not just for security folks, but admins, engineers, everyone that's in this field at this point, because you got to know the fundamentals and you got to understand what button makes what else happen. So it all ties in. So we've had several people actually get job offers at phenomenal companies doing awesome security work because they won OpenSOC and somebody heard about it. So yeah, it's definitely realistic, and it has paid off for a lot of people.
That is so cool. What an amazing way to give back to the community and help
Right?
more
It's fun. It
folks.
definitely it definitely makes it worth it for us too, because we get to see all these awesome outcomes, and it makes it's a lot of work for us, but those are the kind of things that make it absolutely worth it.
So cool. And I think I saw that last time you ran it, there were hundreds and hundreds of participants. Did you imagine that you'd be scaling it up to this level?
I mean, we had hoped that would get to that point, but yeah, it turned into a really um, badass project that we were fortunate to be a part of at the right time, and we've had a solid following of folks that are there's always a subset that are always in it no matter what, and it's a blast, man. So it's really been cool to see it grow over the last few years. From we've run it at small conferences, and we still will, but like when we were dragging around, our range used to fit in a tiny little suitcase, Pelican case thing, and now we're scaling it up at Amazon. Like we've hosted it out of hotel rooms before. Like it used to be we could tote it around, and now we're we're past that point, and it's pretty amazing to see it grow.
So cool. And for those hardcore folks or anyone else getting into it, what would be your tips to like prepare uh, to do well at the OpenSOC CTF?
Yeah, I forget how much we give them when they join the contest. I'm pretty sure we link to all the docs and stuff, but all the tools we use are open source, so they've got docs online and resources. So we absolutely point everyone to open search docs and how to write Lucene queries. And as you know, OS Query has its own deal, so we show them how to craft uh, OS queries and what not to do. And um, same goes for Archemy. Velociraptor has its own query language, and we try to guide people to do the self learning as much as they can, or self teaching as much as they can. But we absolutely will help wherever we can. We've got a Discord community for anyone that plays or just wants to join in general, and our folks are always helping and answering questions, providing tips and whatnot. Whatever comes up, we're pretty much always available. Um, we've we've recorded a few, I forget how many, but we've recorded a few debriefs of some of the scenarios that we run and retired over the years. So we put those up on YouTube that kind of walk you from beginning to end of the scenario and what to look for, and um, what teams found, what tool to use where, or how to get a certain answer from multiple tools, that kind of thing. Um, a lot of participants have written up blog posts about their experience, how they did how, what they learned and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of good resources out there. We've tried to put it all together and make it available in our Discord. So there's a lot of prep work that folks can do to get familiar with it. But yeah, it's it's fun.
It sounds like a big part of it is know your tools, and I suppose participating in the CTF itself probably really helps folks learn all those tools.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of people come into the event not knowing, what they're signing up for, and they've never seen half of these tools before. Most of them have at least seen elk, but a lot of times they haven't seen the others, and it's brand new. But you got a lot of folks that are hungry to learn and want to sink their teeth in. They come out of it half pros at writing OS queries, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. Do you talk to a lot of folks who come out of the CTF going, "Oh, I'm going to deploy OS Query or I'm going to deploy Velociraptor at
Oh
my
yeah.
work"?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I feel like most people that that we've excuse me, have had participate, like every event, at least a handful of people come up to us and say, "Oh man, I want to get this approved. Like it's free. Like this should definitely be in our stack. We should at least have this in our pocket, even if it's for like IR, you know." So there, even something as simple as Sysmon, we push Sysmon pretty heavily. Uh, there's a lot of pieces that folks see in OpenSOC for the first time and are stoked. And yeah, OS Query and Velociraptor are two big ones.
Awesome. And besides for sort of bringing the tools, are there other things that you'd recommend to folks who want to kind of take learnings from OpenSOC and bring them back into their professional lives?
I mean, yeah, like because like I said, we don't just teach the tools. The whole like we try to push the methodology. So even if you're a Splunk shop or even if you don't have a Velociraptor or OS Query in your environment, we try to teach you what to look for, what to kind of weed out, how to start investigating, from beginning to end without getting lost in the weeds or going down too many rabbit holes. Um, and those are the kind of things we try to emphasize to our participants, because it's easy to get distracted with all the things. I mean, this is the live range, and there's traffic, there's mail, there's all kinds of crap going across the network. And so, similar to a real enterprise environment, there's a lot of stuff that's going to look weird, but it's completely normal. So you got to know what normal looks like in order to find the baddie, and that's kind of part of what we try to teach. So even if you know all the tools that we promote or implement in our range, it's absolutely a good way to hone your skills in other ways.
Yeah, knowing what normal looks like is super important.
Right.
So kind of shifting gears back to your work with Recon, and looking at more, moving away from the simulated range to the real world, what would you say are the biggest challenges facing your team or the industry of folks looking to secure our computers and networks?
I can easily say that our team moves through most challenges pretty well. Like I said, we're small but mighty, and I'm really lucky to work with such sharp folks. Our team is awesome, but otherwise, I feel like our challenges are probably pretty similar to challenges that most teams like ours run into, and we're constantly pushing the limits of automation. Like no analyst wants to get blasted with false positives um, day and night. And so we try to implement as much automation as we can safely and effectively, so that our analysts are only focusing on the things that absolutely need their eyeballs. So less time wasted on things that can be automated means a lot more care can go into the bigger and tougher challenges. And like I said, nobody wants to wake up in the middle of the night if there isn't a fire actually burning. So we're definitely excelling in this area, especially from where we started and where we are now. Our team uses the word toil a lot. One of our goals is always to reduce toil and the grind as much as possible, and optimize our platform while increasing, overall effectiveness in parallel to that. So that's been a goal since day one. But we've done especially well this year. We adopted Lima Charlie as our backend security infrastructure, and I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they have an incredible platform and an even more amazing team to work with. So that's been a huge win for us.
That's awesome. And so how has like working with Lima Charlie helped to reduce toil? Or is that not part of the toil equation?
Well, it's still a work in progress, but it man, they those guys know what they're doing, and it's going to allow us to, so we heavily rely on Sigma for a lot of our detection automation. Then that's just one small example of where they've got all of that sorted out, and we can integrate our existing rule set with theirs, and they they just make a lot of the pieces that we have had to build on our own more easily integrated as a whole. So I'm really excited to see where we go with them. We're only just starting out, but they're phenomenal.
Awesome. Cool. That's great. So then looking forward from today to the next few years, do you have any thoughts about how security, in particular Blue Team, will evolve and change?
I think we'll continue to see automation capabilities grow. Obviously, integration of things that were previously separate, like we're already seeing XDR mentioned a whole lot more these days. Less focus on endpoint threats and more focus on, you know, all the cloud platforms, SaaS platforms, and threats that exist in those realms. I mean, even since we started at Recon, we've seen a definite shift. I mean, we still have all of the things going on with endpoint security and detection, but absolutely has shifted to a lot more focus on the cloud side. Increase in social engineering attacks. If we haven't seen enough of that this week. We just saw the Uber breach, or the Uber hit. So, and as opposed to traditional attack surfaces, I feel like, especially when, I don't know if you've been to the social engineering village at DefCon, but you see the growth there. You just know that that's a growing attack surface, and it's always going to exist. So I think those are a few big areas.
Yeah, and with the increased automation, do you see security practitioners becoming more of sort of software engineers and learning how to write the code that helps with those automations and stuff? Or would you imagine
Oh
we'll
yeah.
head more towards the low code, no code kind of platforms?
Well, I mean, I can speak to what our team does. I mean, I had mentioned Sigma earlier. So we use Sigma, but that's where our initial rules kind of grow from. Like, um, there's a lot of great Sigma resources out there. So we try to keep everything written as Sigma and then translate it to what it needs to be. So all our guys are writing, you know, Sigma rule sets, and then we can automate the translation of those into whatever whatever platform it needs to go on. So, you know, previously they'd only had to deal with last alert, or actually even before that we were using Graylog for a while. So they've learned to adapt all these different rule sets and automate those things. So I definitely see more of a there's a subset of their work that goes into helping automate those things, so they're not necessarily having to do all that legwork, which is actually really cool, and I think they enjoy it as well.
That's awesome. Well, Whitney, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. For folks who'd like to follow you or see you out there, or see OpenSOC out there in the world, are there socials that folks can look you up on?
Yeah, we've got our Recon Twitter is pretty active. It's at Recon_InfoSec, and then mine is at ShortXStack. We also have a blog that we try to keep active as much as we can. It's at ReconInfoSec.com. Yeah, and then obviously LinkedIn. So I think that's it.
Awesome. And we'll drop links to those in the show notes. And how about OpenSOC?
Oh, yes, we have we combined the blogs there. But yeah, we have an opensoc.io website that has more details on OpenSOC. There's no Twitter for it. We just tweet through Recon. And we do tweet out announcements for when we'll be at conferences, and we plan on being at DefCon 31 next year. So we'll hope to be there in with a full force. As for anything before that, I'm not sure, but we'll be tweeting announcements to all that. In our Discord, we'll have info as well. So if anybody in the community wants to join our Discord, whether it's for OpenSOC or just security stuff, we have that as well.
So cool. We'll look forward to seeing you out there at DefCon.
Yes.
Thanks, Whitney.
Thank you.